Hi everybody, how's it going? Today is the Friday before I leave for BGG, and I'm going to be doing a fair amount of streaming from BGG over the span of next week. So you can expect to see a lot of Cubist videos probably starting next Wednesday, and then going up and on over the span of the entire 5-day convention. I probably won't do anything on my travel days either way, and this is a quick reminder, by the way, that there will be no show a week from Monday, the day after BGG. That will be a travel day, and I will probably be home in time and might do an unscripted something or another if I happen to get home in time, but I wouldn't plan on it. So that's that. I just wanted to get some bookkeeping stuff out of the way. First, however, or main topic, I guess I should say, is Molly and I, over the last couple nights, have played The Colonists, the game from the epic strategy game. Hang on, wait. Whoa. The epic strategy game. There you go. It's so big that even I can hide all the way behind the box. We've been playing it for the last 2 nights. We played eras 1 through 3 on Wednesday night, and then on Thursday night we played era 4. And then afterwards we were originally planning on playing another game, and we realized that we weren't 100% happy with the storage solution that I had figured out for it at that point. And I'd done a video about how I had the Colonists stored before, but in this particular case I wanted to redo it because I didn't really like. I had a bunch of Plano boxes, pardon me. I had a bunch of Plano boxes that I was using for the buildings and the embassies, and then a few of the pawns and whatever. And then I had another Plano that I was using for all of the meeples, all of the farmers and citizens and merchants and whatever. And then I had originally had yet another Plano, or I think maybe even 2, that I was using for all of the resources, all the building resources and sustenance. But I had given up on that a while ago, and I went to muffin cups because, as I've talked about on my show before, I think muffin cups are a really good, cheap, alternative way of storing your stuff. But in this particular case, I decided I had moved away from the muffin cups, and I had bought some GMT counter trays, the nice black flat ones. You buy, I think, a pack of 10 of them for 20 bucks or whatever. And I had included a couple of those, and that'll be part of what I'm about to show you. So I'm giving you that backstory because when we started doing, or when we started playing this past weekend, we had some of this in play and some of it not. So for this video, I'm going to show you how we have it stored now, because what ended up happening is instead of playing another game last night, Molly and I decided that we were going to reorganize this because neither one of us particularly liked it. So this is the reorganization of my copy of The Colonists. And so I'm going to do it like in a, I don't know, whatever. I'm going to show you how it's packed right now, and I will unbox it as I go, and then I'll show you how you have to repack it because it's a tight fit. This is a big game, and there's a lot going on, and if you want any kind of organization besides just baggies for days, this is the only way that I was able to figure it out. So here we go. I'm going to, pardon my reach, I'm going to move the camera down so that way you can see the actual game itself, and then I'll start showing you. Okay, so obviously here's the box. When you take the lid off, it doesn't come off super easily because the box is really strained. You see that the box is full, and we mean full, like it is right up to the top. Now the way that I have it, there is no appreciable lid lift as of right now, but so what we have here is we have 4 baggies that are player packs, and they are everything that a player might need during the game except their pawns, and you'll understand why in a minute. So there is the 3 tools, and there's a food in there. There are 2 farms and 2 farmers. And then you'll notice that I have these gemstones. I don't know if you can see them. There we go. Can you see the little gemstones in there? Yeah, there they are. The gemstones I use to put on the embassy boards off to the side, so that way you have a quick reminder of who has which embassies and how much they can use. This can be particularly valuable for some of the embassies that allow you to move a pawn around, like if you want to make sure that the altruist stays in one location, you might need to know who has the potential to move it. So, and then courtesy of my friend Jamie Maltman, we also have all of the embassy tiles for each player that are right here. And we're getting glare like crazy. Oh well, there we go. There it is. So there's all the embassy tiles are in each player pack as well. I had originally had them separate in their own area, but what Jamie pointed out that each player needs one anyway, so you only need them if you have one for every player, so to heck with it. All right, then we have the 4 decks of cards. The way that I have each deck organized, and you'll notice that they are in very small baggies that only barely fit. That's on purpose because I wanted as little extra stuff in here as I possibly could. But I have the era card and then the market cards face to face with the development cards. And then in that. So there's the 4 eras. Along the side here, we'll get to the counter trays in a minute. Along the side we have the tiles for the 4 eras of the game. This is the era 0 actually. And then era 0 and era 2 have to kind of live on top. And then 1, 3, and 4 are a little bit interchangeable. And I say that because along the side you have one of the 5 eras has to be made into a single stack like this, and the other 4 have to be flattened out into like horizontal stacks of half in order for them to work, which is a pain in the butt and not ideal. I'm still kind of working on that, but I think it's worth it for everything else. And then along the side here, you see, again, JMT counter trays. Along this back side, I have baggies with the storage sheds for the 3 different types of storage that you can do in the game. So there's those fit along the side. And then I have a tiny little baggie of stuff I don't use, which is the market and the day labor for the basic game. And I replaced this huge cylinder because I thought it was a pain in the butt. I replaced it with a bead. You'll see that in a moment. And then I also have the inserts for storages and warehouses tucked in along the side as well. I also, along this side, have the score pad and this baggie that just has the reference cards and the tracker and whatever. That could probably be along the top with everything else, and it might end up being in a minute. All right, so now we have the GMT counter trays. I used 5 counter trays for my copy. I've got 1 tray that is all of, or well, actually 2 trays that are all of the buildings, okay? And these 2 trays also, here, I'll tip them so you can have a little bit, the glare for days, the lighting, this is not perfect lighting, sorry about that. Anyway, there's the 2 trays for buildings. You'll notice that I also have the 3 pawns up here for the different embassies that might need pawns. And the first player marker and this glass bead, which I like a lot better than the yellow thing that I told you I don't use. I put that instead. It's smaller, it's flatter, it's got a wider base, so it doesn't slide around as much. So there's the 2 for the buildings. I have 1 tray just for the meeples. The way that the counter count works out is that you get 1 tray will hold all the meeples and make it really obvious. And more importantly, for people with fat fingers like myself, it makes it really easy to get them out of the trays. And then I've got 2 trays that are the bank. And I have the bank split evenly into 2 mirror image trays because when Molly and I play, we found that it's really handy to just each have 1 bank sitting next to each of us. And in a 4-player game, you can put a bank between 2 sets, a set of 2 players. So you've got one bank on one side of the table and 1 on the other. And then you'll notice that in the top corner here, we have the player pawns. The theory here being that this is already going to get set next to a player. Molly typically plays black. I typically play orange. So therefore, I've got 1 on my side and 1 on her side or whatever. And then you're all set there. And then below that, all the flat stuff. So this is the rule books and the player boards and the embassy and whatever. You'll notice that I have the embassy board split into 2 even stacks as much as possible. Believe it or not, that actually helps with getting the box closed without lid lift. It's sad that you have to do minuscule things like that, but it works. So all the player boards are in there. I'd be really curious to know, actually, if anybody else does this. Do you folks keep these pop-out inserts, by the way? The pop-out inserts here that the player boards have. They tell you to keep them because I'm sure they're supposedly better looking or whatever. I don't know if I actually care or if they're really necessary or not. I think that they're kind of pointless. I mean, if there isn't anything there, then guess what? There isn't anything there, and therefore you don't need to use them. But whatever. I'm a completionist, so I'm keeping them. So anyway, you put the player boards in the bottom. You put the rule books on top. This is how you pack it all back up, of course. You put 5 and 4 for the embassy boards. And I'm pushing everything away from me because that way I can lay it out and push, and I just have found that that's easier. You want to make sure, by the way, that you've got everything tucked into one corner because you're going to actually need that little bit of gap on the side there. Then you put the 5 of these in. I put the bank and the bank as the 2 bottom ones because those tiny tokens, if that were to somehow come released, would be the biggest pain in the butt. So if I put them between the most things, I guess I feel like they have the best chance of staying shut. Then the meeples, and then the buildings. And this last building one, right here, I put on top. It does not shut like this last tray because the buildings, there are just a touch too many of them. And actually, we've got this distributed a little wonky here. There is like one more of each of these buildings than there really should be, which is super annoying. So if you put the farms in the player packs, the farms are fine. The problem child comes in the form of the flats. And actually, never mind. I think maybe, or no, it's not the flats, I'm sorry. It's the hunting lodges. The hunting lodges, there are just a touch too many of them to spread everything out nicely. So you kind of, this one, you're going to get a little bit up here where it doesn't push all the way down. The foresters' huts are actually almost as bad. Yep, they both are. So I have a center column that has like one extra each of those. I'm not going to lie, there's a part of me that seriously thought about peeling 1 or 2 of those out and putting them in the bag of stuff I don't use in order to get them out of this tray so that way the tray would click together better, but whatever. All right, and again, you're going to push everything towards that same corner because you're going to use the side for the score pad. So, and then if you put it in binding side down, it's a little easier to get out, actually, because you have the thing to grab onto. Whatever. And then the reference cards I had along the side, they can probably sit on top. You take the 4 decks of cards, and you put them 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay? And then, yeah, I think I am going to do this, because it really is that close, folks. Okay? You take your 3 storage sets here, your 3 sets of storage buildings. You just go right down the side here on this backside closest to you. Works the best because you've left a gap because you pushed the trays in that far. Below that down here, you take your the inserts and you set those in, and those actually notch in nicely into that gap that was left there. Okay? Then you take your dumb tiles, what I call the dumb tiles, the ones that nobody uses. You set them there. And remember how I said you need 1 out of the 5 sets of building tiles to be vertical? I use arrow 1 because then I remember it for sure. And that tucks down in that other little gap there. And here, I'm going to tuck this up so you can see it, okay? Sorry if I bumped the thing here. So you have, this is arrow 1. And then below this down here are the inserts, the storage and warehouse inserts. Here are the dumb tiles, like I said, and then the 3 storages are side by side right there, okay? So you set that like that, okay? Now you're gonna have eras 2, 3, and 4, and the setup era that are all gonna need, or that are all in these bags. Now the bags that I used, and I probably overthink this because that's sort of my thing, I use smaller bags that I could easily like spread out, so that way it was big enough that it would support like 2 half stacks. So, and then you want one of the eras, the way that I do it is era 3, or I'm sorry, era 2 adds in the second market, and era 1, or the setup era, has the 2 starting markets. So if you split those, so you put those 2 side by side, and then eras 3 and 4 side by side next to them, they all fit. Okay? And then that just leaves you with the player packs that you have to fit. So again, you kind of scrunch up your cards as much as you can into that corner, just like you have been for everything else. And then you take your 4 player packs and you just sort of lay them out. And what you want to do is you want to use baggies that are slightly bigger than they, strictly speaking, need to be, because these you want to leave flat out. And you're going to squeeze the air out of everything. You know, doing stuff like this feels both awesome and reminds me of how much of a nerd I really am, that I actually take joy in goofy crap like this. And then you put the 4 and you just sort of spread them out and lay them so that way they lay flat as possible, right on top of all the other stuff that you have. You put your box top back on, making sure not to catch the edges of any baggies. And what you end up getting is that much lid lift on one side. And that is not bad, considering that you now have a storage solution for this game where you have 2 half banks on either side. You have clearly visible buildings of every variety in the box, so that way you can always find all of the stuff. And there you go. So that is my Colonists. And then what I do in game is I have one of these 1x4 card holders that I use from the Colonists, or from the Broken Token. Okay, this is their very simple generic 1x4 standard card size. And what I will do, and I'm not going to actually unpack everything, I'm just going to show you kind of how I do this. So each era will have its cards like that. And then, so you would have era 0 would have already been put into play, right? This is our starting era, so we'll assume that that's been built. And then what I will literally do is I will set the tiles for each era still in their baggies on top of the cards, okay? And then the storages that as I know they come out, on top of those. And this literally right here sits by the side of the table, just like this, except for the cards wouldn't be in. I probably would have unbaggied the cards already, but you don't need to. You can leave them right like this. And then all you have to do is, once you reach that era of the game, you grab the stuff for the era that you want and you unpack it. And then I literally tuck the baggies right back underneath it, so that way when it comes time to pack the game back up, I've got the baggies that I know I need for each of those 3 components, and I've got them right with the stuff that they're going to use. So it would literally sit just like that near the side of the table. All right, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the glare away. There we go. So it would sit just like that, right next to where we were playing. And then as you're playing, the idea, of course, you take these out, right, and set these off to the side. You're going to put the stacked tiles. You're going to have the cards, okay? The era card will get face up and flip next to whoever it is that's sort of running the board. The market cards you set in a stack next to that. And real fast tip, I don't know, maybe this is me overthinking it. It's probably me overthinking it. So I'd put the development cards, of course, right back in the tray. So now I have a draw pile. Okay, whenever a card is played or discarded for whatever reason, okay, so whenever a card is played or discarded, you don't need a separate discard pile. You just take it and put it face up at the bottom of the deck, okay? And again, anytime somebody discards, you can literally use the cards to pick up the draw pile and just stick them right under. That way you've got the draw pile right there. You know when you need to reshuffle, because you'll start seeing face-up cards in there. So you can reshuffle the entire thing, like so. And then the market deck that is sitting next to, I literally take 5 and 2. I shuffle it really fast, okay? I take 5 and 2, and I about face them. So I've got 5 face up and 2 face down, okay? Then when you want to switch market cards at the end of each round. So this would be the first year. Want to switch markets? You just slide the face-up one face down underneath, and now you have the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, and I might have fumbled that a little bit, but you get the idea. And then when you see a face-up one, that's your last year. So that's also a way, I don't know about you. So here's year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and when you're done with 5, I don't know about you, but every once in a while when we play, we lose track of the years. Either the year counter gets bumped or we maybe forgot to adjust it or whatever. So having that physical reminder there that there's only 5 face-up cards helps you can recount it really fast, and you keep the cards together so you don't have to worry about what to do with those other 2 cards. Plus, you're not flipping as many times. You just, like, it feels like it's just somehow smoother for us. But I don't know. That might just be me. So, and then at the end of the era, you literally take all the cards, put them right back in their baggie. Well, actually, you don't. You take, I'm sorry. What you do at the end of the era, you take the era card and put it on top of the market cards. You take the entirety of the draw deck, okay, which will probably be some face up and some face down. So it should look something like this, right? So it'll be face up for the most part, but a bunch of rounds that have been played, okay? You go through it, find that break, turn them, oh, better than that, because that was terrible. Try that again. You want to make them so they're all facing the same way. And then leave those face up, okay? Put those face up, so now the entire thing is a discard pile. You can put your era card and your marker cards right on top. And then, as people are discarding, they can still face up to the bottom of the stack of the appropriate stack, just like they were when that was the active pile. It works the exact same way, but it also keeps all the cards organized. And then again, you would have the baggies there. Obviously, this baggie would just kind of sit on top, right? Because you have a couple of tiles that are going to get replaced over the rest of the game. So you set the baggie right on top, put the other storage sheds just sort of off to the side in their bag. And again, you only have to get out 3 of the here. I thought about putting these in the player packs as well, but they just don't fit well. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of box size at this point. And I definitely don't necessarily want this box to be any bigger, but now that I have Feast for Odin, which I think is a little bit thicker, I wonder if maybe it would have been better if it was in that size box anyway. So anyway, that is, hang on. I am my own cameraman after all. All right, so that is my organization / in-play solution for the Colonists. And both Molly and I found it pretty good as far as getting things back into the box, having everything be organized while we were playing. It turned setup from a potential like 20-minute debacle of getting muppin cups out and dumping baggies into baggies and trying to figure out where all this stuff is, to 5 minutes. You grab this tray, you know what I mean? You set the stuff on it. You pull, as you pull things out, you just chuck them right onto this tray in the order that you're going to use them anyway. You don't have to unpack anything until the time you actually need it, which is fine because you don't want to unpack anything until you absolutely need it in this game. You've got everything else pre-sorted and already in little cups that are very easy to see, so you can even stack them if you absolutely need to. It's awesome. So I cannot recommend this enough. The only thing you're going to need to buy if you want to use this thing is one of these 1x4s from Broken Token, which I would advise anyway. They're great for a lot of things. Oh, and by the way, let me show you a thing really fast. I'm sorry, this is dumb, but whatever. I don't want to start another stream for one little stupid thing, so I'm just going to do it right now and show you. So here is another thing that I did. These are 2 1x3s from Broken Token. These are separate things that I glued together. And I did this because there are some games, the one that leaps out to me the most is High Frontier 3rd Edition, that have a lot of decks of cards. And this is great for one game, with a couple decks of cards or whatever. But when you're talking about a game that has, in the case of High Frontier, I believe it's 9, 10 decks of cards that you have to be able to see or hand around and have people look at. Having some that are just sort of together so you can just say, here are the 6 decks. You want to look at them, go for it, is really handy. And I was a little worried that the glue would be iffy because this is just straight up super glue. Like, I didn't do anything fancy with it. But there is enough surface at the spaces between where they meet, especially on the back corners and along the back edge. Everything is good there. It ends up being pretty sturdy. Like, it squeaks a little bit, but that's the give where, like, oh, there's one glue joint that didn't hold there. But in general, this thing is held up for, I don't know, close to a year now in this configuration. So just an extra little added bonus of a thing that I have noticed that I've done with both the regular trays and the mini trays. So anyway, I hope this is useful to you Colonist players. I hope you find it interesting. It's a way to spend, let's see, 10 of the GMT counter trays I think are 20 bucks. You're going to use 5 for the solution, so that's 10 bucks. And I think this thing was maybe 10 bucks. And this thing will be used elsewhere, and the other 5 counter trays will be used elsewhere. So, I mean, you spend 30 bucks and you've got all the stuff you need to keep your game of the Colonists perfectly organized and whatever, and you've got extra stuff for other games. There are a ton of other games that can make great use of these counter trays, and I just really like them. So anyway, I hope that's useful. Have a great weekend, everybody, and the next time you see me will be Monday night for the regularly scheduled show. We will be on this week. This week is our... Boy, I don't remember what this week's show is. Well, anyway, it's the BGG and PAX U preview show. Most of us from the Cubist crew are going to be at BGG. Eric Buscemi is going to PAX U. So we're going to talk about the 2 conventions, the stuff that we're looking forward to, discuss how stressed out we are about not being all the way ready to go. And besides that, we will see you from BGG Con. So have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully I'll talk to you all again very soon. Take care.